So good evening. My name is Robert Lewis. I'm an educator, so I'm going to immediately revise what Steve said. As an educator, whenever you want to ask a question, that's usually how I get enjoy doing the teaching. Okay. So basically, the reason I wanted to do this presentation is that a lot of educators, that's loud, right? It's okay. It's okay. Okay. A lot of educators, when COVID hit, it was like we were immediately out in the cold. And I'm a Walking Dead fan, and one of the things is if you stay out too long, it's very difficult to come back in and too loud.
Your jacket's hitting the mic. Can you take your jacket off?
Sure.
No, the microphone on your vest.
Take this off.
Take the jacket off.
Okay, the jacket's in my pocket. That's
okay.
I'll do that. Okay. And I'll put this in here. I got a pocket here.
Are you gonna use the handheld instead?
I'll just put it in my pocket here. That should work. Okay, now is this gonna go? Good. Okay. So the main reason I wanted to do this presentation was so that myself and a lot of educators, when COVID happened, we were basically out on our own. We were literally out in the wilderness, and we had to figure out what to do in order to do what we've done so many years, now completely online. And basically what this presentation is hopefully as a beacon to other educators, how it is that you can use WordPress and still not lose your autonomy, your individuality, your teaching style, and all that. So basically, one of the reasons why WordPress is so important to me is I have a very unique career path as an educator. I work at a place called Consortium for Worker Education. And what we do is we work with other worker education programs, such as Non-Traditional Employment for Women, Edward J. Malloy Initiative for Construction Skills. And I'm also a member of the UFT, specifically the CWE chapter. So I have a very unique type of education, which is because it's so unique and original. There's no way that, sorry, Microsoft, there's just no way that I could use Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom to do the things that I really enjoy doing. Specifically why I teach, I'm just giving you a little background to give you a sense of how, when you work as an educator in WordPress, what it is you're trying to teach and all that is very important. So I teach trades math, I do test prep, and there's a couple other curriculums that I help to put it online. The reason I chose that is I didn't want to end up as what's his name again? Melvin? I can't remember. Office Space. Okay. I didn't want to, Milton. I didn't want to end up as a Milton. So many years I developed everything I was just talking about. And then, and it started back in Williamsburg, Brooklyn in the 1990s. This is where the East River Park, the state park, is now. Back then, you literally might find a body there. That the mafia was on East River at the time, on the waterfront and all that. So when I started doing web pages for education, I don't know where it's right here. All you really needed was Laura LeMay's Bible, right? It was all HTML and straight up HTML. And the reason I just bring this Bible up is, if you're an educator and you look at a page of HTML code and you start feeling afraid, you probably don't want to go into WordPress, because you really need to have some basic understanding. Not like you geniuses and brainiacs here, where you go back and forth, run circles around me in WordPress. But if you're not comfortable with HTML, you're going to get lost very quickly, and it'll be very comfortable. That's when I started doing web pages for education. That was one of my first web pages, frames friendly. That was the version 2 or whatever. But this is back in the 1990s. 2000, our website won a finalist recognition for what's called the Bettino Prize. He was an exponent of pedagogy of the oppressed. What was the guy? Paulo Freire. And basically we did a community mapping website. So this is way back when, 25 years ago. Did the wikis, did the web quests, did the blogspot, eventually came on to WordPress 10, 15 years ago. So that was something, going with WordPress was something that was already baked into me as a teacher, creating educational websites. So I don't even remember which theme that was, but you can kind of see it's really dated at this point. That was back 2013. Eventually evolved in moving forward. I was an adjunct professor at Barriqua College, and then COVID happened, so all the adjuncts were let go. So the pause happened. So all of that I had already been developing, worker education, science, technology, and then COVID happened. And it's only now looking back. When it first happened, we were just so down in the dirty that we couldn't think about anything besides we got to get ready for the next class online. Looking back, this is kind of how I felt about it. Again, we were all out on our own. We basically were in a Sargasso Sea of flotsam and flotilla, and we literally had to build our own rafts to eventually. And the reason that was, I use that as like terror, is because what I'm really afraid of was this, what's called brain hacking. I think it's the next page. Yeah, brain hacking, and basically, it's like because I teach worker education, the Luddites is a big thing that I liked considering. So the Luddites were skilled workers that are being reduced to poverty by the cookie cutter looms that were making skilled labor into unskilled labor and making everyone paupers, for lack of a better word. When COVID happened and we all were first forced as teachers to move online, that really was my biggest fear, which is why I really felt this way. And every time I look back 2 years ago, I still get that chill on my spine. My God, how are we going to keep doing so well when we're stuck online? And again, there's a couple buzzwords there. Brain hacking. If you Google that, there's a big concern about what's going on in terms of online learning and all that. That's not what I wanted to do. So basically, when we first started fixing, we got to have an online product. One of the things is, well, what are our alpha principles? What are our guiding principles? What are the values that we want to have in our WordPress LMS? I'm just going to quickly skim through these, but basically, one of the things that you as designers think about, well, if we're going to do an educational LMS, most of the designs I've seen are static piles of pages, lesson plans, worksheets, assessments, but it's literally a stack of papers. It's just like you're visualizing that file cabinet with the manila folders, and you got all these lesson plans, and that's basically most of the LMSs that I looked at are like that. And the reason that I put that alpha thing up there is that an LMS is not simply teaching. It's also about as worker education programs, there's something called intake. So you have all this data coming into you from students that's not necessarily about their math skills. It's not necessarily about how well they are taking a test. This information gets in, and as I go, I think it's on the next page. Oh yeah, I'll come back to that. Is that going to go forward there? So intake, right? So that goes into the LMS. From that intake, we can figure out, our city council members. Well, how many of our students are serving that council area? Compliance data, no dollar left behind. Well, you got to make sure your data is in the right format so that you get every dollar that the state's willing to give you. Passwords, all that sort of information to create accounts. All of that connects into an organic, larger sense of perspective of how you teach online. Again, teaching is not simply having a stack of lesson plans in front of you. All this goes into that. And that's what I'm going to go back now. All of that we talked about summer 2020. The one thing that I have added since then is that, and this is really big, most designers don't think about this for education. Student behavior is human behavior, which means that there's ethical considerations when a student is using your website. Now, I'm not going to name the big data people, but basically the reason they want your data is so they can make money off it. When you're doing education, there are ethical responsibilities that get baked into what I mentioned as the alpha principles when we started designing our LMSs back in the summer 2020. So again, it's more than just a bunch of lesson plans. And so basically, we said, okay. At that time, I was sitting next to our CFO officer, and I prayed every night, please don't jump out the window, because at the summer of 2020, where we can't make paychecks, right? On the phone with the bankers all the time. So we had no choice. We had to launch, and I'm glad that I don't have my original designs because they were really primitive and bad. But the point is that we had no choice. We had to get out in the water and do the things that we were originally doing face to face, now online. So what I'm going to talk about in this presentation is how we got from alpha to beta. Right now we're in beta. We have, and what I want to do is share, mostly for the educators, what I learned the hard way, trial and error. There is no design to basically what I did, but things I found in WordPress that were helpful to me to make the websites the way they are now. So this is in a nutshell what I'll quickly talk about, and then I'll ask for questions or anything like that. Jetpack, Contact 7, LearnPress, BuddyPress, and I'll do, hopefully I won't mess this up, but how to use the beta editor on the 2022 theme in ways that would make sense to educators. Talking about headers and menus, and something I'd like to call semanticicism. I'll mention that a little bit later. The last thing before I get into the website, Jetpack. I'm recommending you get Jetpack, but it is something you have to pay money for. But as educators, my sense is that that's something that you can at least write it off on your taxes above the line. Everything else I'm going to show you besides Jetpack is totally free. We're educators. Obviously, we don't have a lot of money to work. Okay. So let's get back into the, this is WordPress.com. If you get a Jetpack account, you can, the WordPress account is free. And if you go this direction, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of things that Jetpack can help you improve your educational skills with. The first thing is, just like I was saying at the beginning of this presentation, everything that it's still a shock when I see those bar graphs, because it's like everything shut down in 2020 and slowly now we're recovering. You can get a whole bunch of perspectives on this. My favorite bar on this graph is this one, because what this means is that May 2020, most educators are still bumbling and fumbling, trying to figure out, what were they going to do. We were already starting to put our LMS online. We were already teaching classes online in May 2020. What this also shows you is there's this phrase that you can't manage what you don't measure. Well, simply looking at this bar graph, you can see, comparing 2020 to 2021, and now we're in 2022, you can see that it was pretty scattershot. The reason these bars are so big is because we dropped April and May because COVID happened, trying to make it back. And then you can see here, we're starting to regulate. We're starting to say, okay, this is basically a good optimal throughput for our LMS. So you can see it started to level out. Still some up and downs, but it wasn't like this. I can't even remember what I was doing. Just everything was going on this 2 months. And Jetpack will show that to you. Going to a week perspective. So here we are today. This was the last course that I completed. It was a four-week class. We had 38 graduates, but you can see this is a solid work product. Okay, no scattershot. They start, and basically it's continual throughput every week. This is what happens when you have Memorial Day weekend in the middle of your planning calendar. You can see that what's going on here is a lot more like my first year teaching than this, which is like a, much more solid work product. So that's one thing that Jetpack will allow you to do, is it allow you to figure out what's going on in terms of how professional, how proficient you are at what you're doing online. The reason I click on that link is when that week first came, during that week, why am I getting people from Jamaica? So I passed that up the corporate ladder. Oh, there's a student in your class that's in Jamaica that week, so we were able to figure that out. The reason why I'm pointing this out, though, is that one of our other organizations, groups in CWE, are for nurses, and she asked me, how can I know if where my students are online? Because if you want to get a license in phlebotomy, for example, you obviously there has to be an in-person component, otherwise you won't get the license. So if someone's hanging out in Jamaica taking the class, there's no reason to do that. So again, remember back on the alpha values, we're not just talking about lesson plans, we're talking about a more integrated way of dealing with remote learning, which includes not only the learning, but if someone's in Jamaica, should they actually be taking the class? If there's an in-person component, you can't learn how to take blood from someone, remotely, virtually on a computer. You have to actually have a live human being. Okay, one other thing about this before I move on to the other stuff. So what was going on that day, right? Well, remember I said there's two things that I basically teach. I teach trades math and I teach test prep. So the ETA is the electrician's test prep entrance exam. And you can see the lines here means I deleted those because this is the entrance exam. I didn't want it on all the time, but on that day, it was up. I had that number of people. And then also, earlier in the day, I was teaching a trades math. So one of the other things that LearnPress will allow you to do is, are the students reading my pages? Are they reading the lessons that I have out online? This gives you immediate feedback. Which pages are they reading? Which pages are they not reading? And that helps you develop your online curriculum. So again, you can't manage what you can't measure. There's a lot of measurement that you can do with WordPress. Okay. Anything else I want to say about that? I don't think so. All right, let's go back. What's the next thing? Oh, yeah, okay, so that's Jetpack. Okay, the next thing, contact 7. Where is that doesn't matter, just pull one up. If you're doing any teaching online, get contact 7. Some people use Moodle, some people use Canvas, some people use Drupal. Contact 7, of all the platforms, and I don't know the other ones that well, but Contact 7 is a godsend when it comes to gathering student information to measure and assess and see how they're doing. For example, I have this thing I call LearnBox. So I might as well just start with this. So you can see there's, remember I mentioned about Laura LeMay? So one of the things about, one of the reasons I said you really should be comfortable with HTML code is because if that looks like a lot of gobbledygook to you, the odds are you're not going to be able to efficiently reproduce pages as you move forward. Let me explain what I mean when I say that. So I have a lesson on adding and subtracting feet and inches. So I click on that. This takes me into LearnPress. I'll mention that in a minute. LearnPress is free. The add-ons you pay for, but it's I think it's the most popular. If you look at the theme page on WordPress.org, it's got a lot of people that use it. It's very simple. And remember I was saying about the stacks of lesson plans? Well, there they are right now. This is the classic design for an LMS. You got your lesson on the right, you got the table of contents on the left. But again, the most important thing there is I got that as links, and then I got these worksheets that follow. You do the lesson, and then you got these worksheets. This is my most current, where I have 4 classes, total of about 100 students. Now, Each student has an ID. So you click on one of them, boom, that's 314. There are your problems. Because I teach worker education, as soon as COVID happened, there's no way that I can give everybody the same test. If you give everybody the same test, you're going to be able, they're all just going to copy it off each other. Well, that's the first assignment. If I go into the HTML for that, you can see let's see if I can find one real quick here. Right. So the first time I downloaded it, they all come in as the ID and then .pdf. The second assignment that I upload to the server, it's going to be 323-1. So all I got to do is copy this, put it in the notepad. I don't even need crazy software, and find replace .pdf and put a -1.pdf, and then you can literally run through assignment after assignment after assignment, and then when they got their answers, there's the contact 7 form. So all they do is they type in their answers, and then on the back end, right? So that first one, that was the feet and add, subtract, feet and inches. I got 200 students that submitted that form, and then I can take it and compile it and do all I need to do, remembering the ethical issues and all that. But I can't think of a simpler way, basic, primitive way, to be able to take hundreds of students and responses to a form and just grab them in one click. I know you can't do it in Moodle, and I'm sure that the other ones not so good. So Contact 7, the Contact 7 plugin, really value. I couldn't have done it without Contact 7. LearnPress, same thing. Oh, the other thing about LearnPress, I wanted just to why it's valuable is that they actually, I haven't paid any money for LearnPress, but every time I have a problem with LearnPress, their organization is very responsive. They have an excellent question and answer form here, and so this is at the end of it. I said many thanks and all that. So they are responsive, and that's a good reason to use LearnPress, because if you're having a problem, they will respond to you. Okay, let's see, what's the next thing up? BuddyPress. Most teachers are condemned to using email to communicate with students. If you have 100 students, 100 emails every day, you're just not going to be able to keep on top of it. So using BuddyPress, if you have a question, if you have a math question, ask it to me. One of the great things about WordPress and BuddyPress is that it's totally anonymous. You do not need a real email to get an account on WordPress. You do not need a real email to get on these forums. If you want to put your name up, you're fine. But you can see that's another important thing with teaching online, especially with worker education, is that you don't want to have to force a person to reveal any information about themselves. When I teach at non-traditional employment for women, occasionally we have a transitioning person, and they don't want their old names to be up on the screen anywhere. So WordPress, valuing student privacy and all is very important. The other really good thing about BuddyPress is I can keep on top of, okay, I answered all their questions, so I know that there's nothing that left I had to answer for those questions. That's a lot better than any sort of email function. Okay. Okay. I hope I can do this. So let me go back to the home page. So right now, my home page is, like I said, we're doing test prep for electricians, and this is the way it's set up right now. Okay. Well, what if I have to teach another course? This is where that editor beta thing I found is very, very helpful. Edit the site, and let's say I want to get off of my electrician test prep and go back to my tradesman. I hope I can do this. So you click on the message here. Hopefully I can make this work. Okay, down here it is. Gotta wait for it to load. Loading. There we go. Then you click the three lines on the top there, and then you look for the where's the query? It's here. Anyone see where the query thing is? The query it's got to be here somewhere.
Did you open up post content?
Yeah, you're right. That's where it is. Query loop. Bam. Okay. So when I first went to WordPress.org to what's going on with this new theme, query loop kind of freaked me out. But here's the deal. One of the filters for a query loop, what are the categories? So if you use WordPress for educators, you know that you really should categorize everything, every one of your posts, just to make them organized. Well, those are all my electrician posts. If I got rid of that and then go back to my trades math class, is that going to work? And there it is. Save. And if I go back to the home page now all my postings for my class, when I'm doing a green building and all that, all I had to do was that one little thing, and now I've totally moved over to a different course. One thing that didn't change, I need to change, is this right here. The way I have this designed is, and I'll talk about that up there in a minute. On the right side is where I keep my page links. Pages are things that don't change, unlike the blogs. Well, if I go back to editing the site, in that design, you can see that I had a 70-30 two columns layout. And so now what I have to do, once it loads up.
5 minutes.
Thank you. Is I can switch out on one menu for another. So one of the things I've observed with this is you got to go down to the classic, get the classic menus to make this work. So I think what's this, Y22 right there. And is that going to work or not? There they are. That wasn't the right one, but you see the point there. So again, with one click, and let's go back to the home. What happened? All right, do it that way. Okay, one last thing, and then I'll shut up. The top menu. If you want to edit the top menu, that's like the daily flow. So there's three major parts for this. The top menu is things that, what am I going to be doing today when I'm teaching? Obviously, you got to get on Zoom. We're going to start with homework, and then I had a lesson on linear equations. I showed you the Learn box, and you asked me quick quiz is something else I do. But the key is that this is all all you do is click a couple of buttons, and you've totally reorganized the site based from class to class to class. This is a lot better for educators teaching online, I believe, than simply viewing an LMS as a stack of papers that you put in the file cabinet somewhere. Every day you walk in, there's going to be something going on that you're going to have to adjust in some sort of way. You have to adapt. This 2022 theme, I've really been able to learn a lot about how to maneuver and manipulate what I want to do on any given day. Okay, I guess just to finish off, I just want to thank Steve Bruner for keeping the boat afloat for all the times we had to be online. I feel a lot better being back in person now. So unless there's any questions, I'll say thank you and close out.